have never ran outside of a theater the way I ran out of this movie. Was it haunting that Nikki's sobs were playing in the background as I proceeded to flee the building? Yes. I have never seen a messier friend group. And I mean, Challengers was messy, but like Justifiable was messy. But this was like, this could have been avoided. Greetings and salutations. Today's case is Obsession, written and directed by Curry Baker, who's more known for short films.
It is definitely Barker. I guess I didn't see VR. My bad.
For comedy shorts that I've seen, at least on his YouTube page at first glance. The movie's premise is boy likes girl and would do anything to make it happen until that opportunity finally arrives and it's literally bought and paid for. And he still, somehow, some way, screws it up. Nikki is now Freaky Nikki, and we kind of have to unpack all of that.
Full warning that if you do not want to hear spoilers for Obsession and have yet to see Obsession yourself, please feel free to head on out and watch a couple of my other videos if you'd like. But if you do not care and couldn't care less, have a good time.
What the flip? What the flip? What the flip? Another thing we're going to do here, Michael Johnson's character, that T is throwing me off, so if I don't pronounce it, I'm sorry. His character, Bear, we're not gonna call him Bear. This is Bear slander, all right? We already have another Bear, and his name is Carmy, and we're not gonna do him like this. Which I think if Carmy were ever in this situation, this man would literally just break the One Wish Willow and ask for more time to think about his wish. Because, you know, his anxiety could never. My first thing I should let people know is that I'm not a horror fan. I'm firmly into the thriller genre, love thriller. My only issue is I hate gimmicky horror or horror that relies on certain tropes or stereotypes. If the logic is not there, I'm not gonna have a good time. As much as Obsession stressed me out, I kind of liked it. And I feel like a lot of horror films need to do that. I'm in the camp of wanting to feel stressed, angst, empathetic, and just over it by the end of it. Wanting to get all into the bad emotions that come from being in a situation that is akin to a real life situation. If we all had One Wish Willows, we've all been in the situation where we've had a crush on somebody or have been feeling a certain way towards a friend or whoever. And it would really help if we just had a simple answer to those issues where we could know if, do they like us or do they know? Bear leans straight right into the, she's gonna love me regardless. In terms of how it plays out is kind of where it loses me a little bit. The best thing this movie does is specifically Nikki and Baron's character. Now, Grant, he starts off as kind of mousy and meek and pouring his heart out essentially to his friend to kind of give him an idea of how much he cares for Nikki, who is part of their friend group and who he's had a crush on since he's moved into town, because I'm sure he probably loves her as a friend. But then over the course of the movie, you're probably thinking like, did you really? Because I don't know. It's on the friendship of these four main characters, I have never imagined it would probably fray in the way that it does in relation to just two characters getting together. And like I said, Baron is fine for the beginning portion of the movie. You kind of understand where he comes from. Notice that he's like microdosing with his grandmother's pills. So he might just be a person that is just doesn't know how to deal with himself or be with himself. Having someone around him feels better than being alone. All that attention that he put on Nikki was just so that way he wouldn't have to be alone with himself. By the end of it, you see why he made the decision that he made. Baron is also the best characterization I've seen of an unlikable character. He's selfish, he's clearly a little narcissistic to an extent, and he's just not a good person, but you do feel sorry for him to an extent. The amount of stuff that is happening between these two in this very forced relationship, to say the least, horrific. Miss Indy, you did your thing. You really, big claps to you. Her throughout this entire film is very interesting. Under the One Wish Willow, obviously, there's some sort of demonic influence you can sense where there's one persona that is taking over versus Nikki, who's kind of backlined once that wish ends up happening. And throughout the movie, she does like get these little startled moments where she's freaking out when she's really with Bear. And by really with Bear, I mean really with Baron. Baron. No disrespect to the bear. There has to be moments where she's either seeing something or like the being that is also taking part in her body is also forcing her to go through these circumstances and she sees that beast or demon. I'm not entirely sure. There's a lot of visually interesting things that this film does, which is play with a lot of the lighting on Nikki's face, but just the way that the shadows fall on her face, you can't quite see her. It's also representative of like she's kind of empty inside or appearing empty and is just her body or like some other being taking over at that point. This is freaky, Nikki. this is weird. And also the reflections of the people we initially see them as at the beginning of the film to the end of the film are drastically different because you start off thinking one way about this friend group and the relationships they have and things like that, and it just flips it on its head by the end of this film. This could have all been avoided if we had just not gossiped girl this whole thing and just talked to each other as friends, like just friend zone the man. Friend zone the man, and this would have never happened. I think one of the biggest highlights for this film for me that made me think Baron was the most unlikable character is obviously when he finds out that Nikki had lied about a specific aspect of her life in order to get closer to Bear. Friends in the friend group find out that, hey, this is concerning. Why is she saying stuff like this? And then as Baron confronts Nikki about this certain information, she blatantly tells him like, yeah, I did lie. What are you gonna do about it? And after that point, Bear's already like seen a lot of different things change with Nikki or a few weird things that he's already fully committed at this point that this is going to be the girl he chooses. And that is where I kind of lose a little bit of the story. This whole movie relies on the fact that Nikki's fine. She's just a little kooky. She just really loves me. Like this is all what it's about. She's just kind of obsessed. The amount of creepy, haunting things that happen throughout this film. One, she's feeding him the dead cat that died in the beginning of the film. There's the taping of the walls so that way he can't leave the house. Like all of these things, I'm just thinking if you made the wish better, like if you didn't phrase it like I'm the only thing she loves and cares about in the world, we might not end up exactly where we are. Just make a better wish. Just make a better wish, sir. Or just make an imaginary girlfriend. I don't care. Figure it out. Of all the things that are happening in this film, the eerie and weird circumstances that are happening, even the murders that happen in this film, we're not thinking, I'm gonna have to take one for the team. Even when Nikki ends up sneaking past the persona that is at the forefront and telling Bear, you need to kill me because this is not going to stop. And it's just haunting that Bear's ultimate decision is to keep her suffering going long term. I also feel like those creepy and weird aspects don't really have a natural escalation. Like she goes right to weird. And at this point, you have to think that the character must be so dumb. It just feels like this character is just going through the motions of reasonable doubt, but reasonable doubt left the building ages ago. For me, I would have liked to hang on to the idea that we don't know if this is the wish or if this is just naturally what Nikki is doing. I know obviously the concept is of the wish. The wish could not be undone. Once a wish is made, it is what it is. You suffer the consequences. Monkey's paw. I feel like the mystery behind, is she acting like this because this is of her own accord? Like, is this the freaky Nikki we've been talking about? Maybe that's unneeded, maybe that's unnecessary. I just feel like the escalation from, all right, wish is done, it's cooked, we're all dying, and this is just how it's gonna end. Plus, the situation around the obsession that Nikki develops for Bear feels very soft-handed. Like all the intervention that is happening, everyone's so afraid to really say anything about it or like actually figure out what is going on and the dynamics between the two. And like I said, it does feel secluded because there are murders that happen throughout this movie. It's just kind of dealt in a secluded manner. Like it's only the friend group that's being affected by it. And like I said, if the group had just stopped with the gossip and just come to forefront about the information, Bear would eventually need to figure out like, maybe I don't need to make the wish if my boy is clapping cheeks. But this film also makes you look at the aspect of how selfish does a person have to be to ignore the pain of a person that they apparently love, and looking at that aspect of, did he really love her? Is it just an obsession or an idea of her that he made up in his head? And the fact that this person would suffer long term, the fantasy that they had, and even though that fantasy isn't fulfilled, they would rather die than let that fantasy die. And that is the most effed up thing that got me at the end of this movie, and I hated every minute of it. But damn, was it a good movie.
I just want to reiterate that as a non-horror fan, my opinion is not going to equate to somebody that sleeps, eats, breathes this franchise, any sense of this genre. My rating also contributes to the fact that I probably would never see this movie again, simply because I feel like the novelty of it is really important in that first watch through. And so watching it over again kind of feels nonsensical to me, at least, because even if I really enjoyed this film and I thought it was the best ever, I feel like horror is really difficult. This has to rely on the fact that you don't know what you're going to expect and how things are going to follow along, and the little details that Curry Baker includes throughout the movie. I do feel like it's a bit of a reset in the horror genre. It's shaking things up, and I can always support an original film in the landscape of sequels, saga editions, and reboots. So if there's an original film or a thing that you just want to see that isn't something in that landscape, you can break out by watching Obsession. Like, I could recommend it for days. If there's a friend out there that hasn't seen Obsession and wants to see it, I would recommend it to them. I would even maybe watch it with them, but I would never watch it on my own, because that novelty is only earned from watching it the first time or watching it with somebody and they're experiencing it. But overall, Obsession is suspenseful. It's surprisingly funny. It's dark. It's speaking about the human condition. Maybe a little bit of commentary on parasocial relationships. You can kind of connect it to that, but it's a whole culmination of things that I feel like people would be interested enough, and it's very what can I say? A breath of fresh air. The way this movie plays off some of the actions Nikki is doing throughout this film, the lack of intervention, maybe it's just willful ignorance, but the reasonable doubt that he has during the process of Nikki doing these things and him thinking, is it really the One Wish Willow, or is this just how Nikki is acting? The movie does require a bit of suspension of disbelief, and I don't know if I would be willing to give that, or if I even can give that. So if there's someone out there that is like me, you may have a difficult time wrapping your head around the concept of him just kind of dealing with these circumstances longer than any person should. But if you're a horror fan or thriller fan specifically, you'll definitely find this up your alley. Therefore, I would have to put Obsession as a refire required, because it does require a little more seasoning, possibly needs to be popped back in the oven just a little more time before it's fully ready and I can enjoy it again.
But other than that, did you guys end up watching Obsession? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Be sure to comment down below along with your thoughts, theories, and inquiries. And if you like this video, be sure to like, and if you want to see more, be sure to subscribe, because subscribing is free. And if you want, you can check the description down below for portals to new endeavors, because fun stuff happens there sometimes. But anyway, I hope you guys have a lovely day, and I'll see you guys on the flip side. Bye.